They thought silence would finish you. They thought pressure would fold your spine. They thought isolation would erase your name from the world. They threw you into a place so dark it didn't even have a name. No applause, no witnesses, no rescue coming. And in that moment, right there, they believed they had won. They believed control was complete. But listen closely, because this is where the story really begins. They wanted you small, predictable, obedient. They wanted you to doubt your own voice before you ever spoke it. They wanted you asking for permission to exist. They wanted your confidence diluted, your dreams delayed, your power postponed. They smiled while tightening the cage. They called it care. They called it guidance. They called it for your own good. And you believed them. For a while. You believed love was supposed to hurt. You believed loyalty meant silence. You believed strength meant endurance, not escape. They expected you to shrink. They expected gratitude for crumbs. They expected compliance dressed up as peace. But what they never understood, what they never calculated, was what happens to a soul when it's pushed too far into the dark. Because darkness doesn't just destroy. Sometimes it reveals. At first, you didn't rise. You survived. You learned how to breathe quietly, how to endure without being seen, how to hold yourself together with shaking hands and whispered prayers. Every day felt like walking through fire barefoot. Every night, a war between who you were and who they demanded you become. And they mistook your silence for surrender. They thought the storm had passed, but inside you, something ancient was waking up. You began to notice things, how their power depended on your fear, how their words only cut when you believed them, how the cage had no lock, only habits. You started listening to yourself again. At first, just a whisper, a quiet voice asking, "What if this isn't all there is?" That question changed everything. Because once a mind asks, once a soul questions, control starts to crack. You didn't escape overnight. You didn't transform in a single cinematic moment. No, you forged yourself. You learned to sit with pain without letting it define you. You learned that loneliness could be a teacher, not a sentence. You learned that breaking down didn't mean breaking apart. Every tear rewired you. Every disappointment sharpened you. Every betrayal burned away illusions. They gave you chaos, and you learned clarity. They gave you pressure, and you discovered strength. They gave you darkness, and you found a fire that didn't ask for permission to burn. Did they notice the shift? Of course they did. At first they laughed. Then they questioned. Then they watched. And something in their eyes changed. They felt it before they understood it. A disturbance. A loss of grip. You weren't reacting the same. You weren't explaining yourself. You weren't begging to be understood. Your silence was different now. Calm, grounded, unshakable. And that terrified them. Because control only works on those who still seek approval. And you stopped asking. They tried old tactics, guilt, fear, reminders of who they thought you were. But you didn't flinch. They tried louder voices, sharper words, subtle threats dressed as concern. But you didn't bend. You were no longer fighting them. You were no longer proving anything. You were building something inside. And that's the moment power shifted. Because when someone no longer needs validation, they become uncontrollable. You began to move differently, not rushed, not desperate, intentional. You chose peace over performance, distance over drama, growth over revenge. And they couldn't stand it, because nothing confuses an antagonist more than a protagonist who refuses to play the old role. They wanted reactions. You gave them boundaries. They wanted submission. You gave them silence. They wanted control. You gave them nothing. Some nights, doubt still knocked on your door. Old fears tried to reclaim territory. But now you knew their names. Now you knew their tricks. You stood in the mirror and saw someone unfamiliar, someone stronger, someone awake, scars where chains used to be, fire where fear once lived. You weren't becoming heartless, you were becoming whole, and wholeness doesn't beg. They watched you rise without understanding how. No announcements, no revenge speeches, no need to explain. Just results, just peace, just a quiet confidence that didn't need witnesses. And that silence, that was louder than anything you could have said. You reached a point where their opinions felt distant, like echoes from a past life. You no longer measured your worth through their approval. You no longer handed them the keys to your emotions. You realized something monumental. Freedom isn't loud. It's calm. Freedom doesn't argue. It walks away. Freedom doesn't prove. It is. And then, the final shift. The moment you fully stepped into yourself. No anger, no bitterness, no need to look back. You didn't win by destroying them. You won by outgrowing them. While they stayed stuck replaying old games, you evolved. While they clung to control, you mastered yourself. And self-mastery, that's the crown no one can take from you. Look at you now, unreachable, unshaken, unapologetically alive. They wanted obedience. You chose awareness. They wanted silence. You chose truth. They wanted control. You became free. And the most powerful part? You didn't escape to prove them wrong. You escaped to honor yourself. You don't need revenge. You don't need recognition. Your peace is the proof. Your growth is the answer. So stand there, in your freedom. Breathe it in. Let them wonder how they lost control. Let them replay moments they underestimated you. You're not looking back. You're not shrinking. You are walking forward, unowned, unbroken, unstoppable. They wanted control, and you became free. They tried to define you with their rules. They tried to cage your dreams with their doubts. They tried to paint your future with shades of fear. Every word they spoke, every glance they threw, every expectation they forced, it was all designed to keep you small, to keep you manageable, to keep you in the shadows. And for a moment, you felt the weight of it. You felt the heaviness pressing down on your shoulders, the darkness pressing down on your chest, the silence pressing down on your soul. But even in that suffocating pressure, something inside you refused to break. Something whispered that this wasn't the end, that the story didn't stop here, that you were meant for something larger, something brighter, something unstoppable. You started noticing the cracks, the small gaps where their control wasn't complete, the moments where their power faltered, the moments where you could take a breath, lift your head, and see the world just beyond the cage. And in those moments, you began to understand a truth that they would never tell you. You are stronger than their limits. You are brighter than their darkness. You are more than the sum of their expectations. And every time you remembered this truth, even for a second, the fire inside you flickered to life. It didn't happen all at once. It wasn't a sudden explosion. It was slow, steady, relentless, like water wearing away stone. You took one step, then another. You spoke one truth, then another. You held one boundary, then another. Every choice you made, every action you took, built a fortress around your soul that they could not penetrate. Every time they tried to shake you, you held tighter to your vision. Every time they tried to scare you, you stood taller. Every time they tried to silence you, you found a new way to speak, even if only in the quiet of your mind, even if only to yourself. And then came the moment when they realized you were no longer theirs to control. Their tactics no longer worked. Their words no longer cut. Their games no longer mattered. You had outgrown the cage. You had outgrown their expectations. You had outgrown fear itself. And in that moment, you discovered a new power, one that they could never take from you. The power of self-mastery, the power of peace, the power of walking through life unshaken, unbroken, unstoppable. And it was beautiful. It was terrifying to them. It was proof that freedom is not given, it is claimed. Now when you look back, you do not see the chains. You do not see the fear. You do not see the moments they tried to hold you down. You see the fire they could not extinguish. You see the strength they could not crush. You see the unstoppable force that you have become. And that force is yours forever, not because of what they did to you, but because of what you chose to become. You chose courage. You chose growth. You chose freedom. And that choice, that relentless choice, has made you unshakable, unbreakable, unstoppable. So stand there, in your freedom. Breathe it in. Let them wonder how they lost control. Let them replay moments they underestimated you. You're not looking back. You're not shrinking. You are walking forward, unowned, unbroken, unstoppable. They wanted control. And you became free. They tried to break you with their words, their rules, their expectations. They thought if they shouted louder, you would shrink. If they threatened harder, you would fall. If they judged endlessly, you would kneel. But they didn't understand one truth: your spirit cannot be tamed by fear. Every attempt they made to bend you only revealed the steel within you. Every shadow they cast only made your inner light shine brighter, and slowly, imperceptibly, they began to see it, their control slipping like sand through their fingers. You began to walk differently, not because they demanded it, but because you discovered a rhythm inside yourself that no one could touch. You moved with purpose, with clarity, with intent. Each step was a rebellion, not loud, not dramatic, but undeniable. Each breath reminded you that the life they tried to cage was still yours to live. And in that quiet defiance, you felt a power they could never steal. The power of self-belief, the power of resilience, the power of freedom. Every time they tried to pull you back into doubt, you held your ground. Every time they tried to shake your confidence, you anchored yourself deeper. Every time they whispered their limitations, you shouted your potential silently, fiercely, unyieldingly, and slowly you realized that freedom was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving yourself right, about standing tall in your own light, about walking forward unshaken, unstoppable, and unapologetically alive. Now they watch from the sidelines, confused, powerless, while you move through life like a storm they cannot contain. They wanted control, but you became freedom incarnate. They wanted obedience, but you became authority over your own soul. They wanted submission, but you became unbreakable. And the greatest revenge of all, you didn't just survive, you soared. Now, when you look back, you do not see the chains, you do not see the fear, you do not see the moments they tried to hold you down. You see the fire they could not extinguish. You see the strength they could not crush. You see the unstoppable force that you have become, and that force is yours forever, not because of what they did to you, but because of what you chose to become. You chose courage. You chose growth. You chose freedom. And that choice, that relentless choice, has made you unshakable, unbreakable, unstoppable. So stand there, in your freedom. Breathe it in. Let them wonder how they lost control. Let them replay moments they underestimated you. You're not looking back. You're not shrinking. You are walking forward, unowned, unbroken, unstoppable. They wanted control. And you became free.